Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub. I'm here today with Bob Thompson. He is the Ephrata Borough Manager. Bob, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So we asked a lot of local officials if they wanted to talk with us about how things are looking, about COVID stuff, about all that stuff. Always good to have good information out there. So, Bob, first question on everybody's minds. Are there COVID related changes that have been made at the borough level that you want to tell people about so that everybody's on the same page about what's going on?
Yes. First of all, it's interesting if you were to ever be at Borough Hall to see the number of people that literally come into Borough Hall simply to pay their utility bills. And, since this lockdown has occurred, we've actually closed access face to face with our customer service counters. We provided drop boxes in the lobby. There's a telephone in the lobby. So there's staff that they can talk to. But customers, the first thing they realize is they don't get that face-to-face contact with the borough staff. And as you and I spoke prior to the recording here today, this is the first week we brought our borough staff back in full capacity during regular work shifts. And while we did that at Borough Hall as well, we did not open the customer service counter. So that's one thing the public will notice immediately. During the crisis, as you may know, we run utility services. So we have electric, we have water, and we have wastewater services. And there's certain special skill sets to operate water, wastewater plants, and electric linemen. So we felt it imperative at the beginning to break our workers into two shifts so that in the event we did have a COVID contamination, we wouldn't eliminate that skill set entirely, but we'd reduce it in half.
That makes total sense. Yeah, good idea.
So we actually turned out to be a positive for the community because we had people ready to serve for 16 hours a day instead of 8. But this week, the week of the 22nd, we did resume normal hours, and it's an adjustment getting back to whatever the normal may become.
Excellent. Good. A lot of people have been saying, are there new things going on in the borough? Are there new initiatives that you guys planned? What's going on that's new that people haven't heard yet?
Well, again, if we have to go back and relate to the COVID situation, is we backed off on taking new initiatives simply because one of our concerns is whether or not we're going to have sufficient cash flow. When you're in the utility operations, we continue to sell service, but we recognize that many communities, many residents in our community just didn't work, and they couldn't afford to. So one of the actions that Borough Council took immediately was to suspend utility disconnections so that while they may still incur balances, we were not shutting off for non-payment of service. Now that things have relaxed a little bit, we will start having discussions about when to resume reconnections. But it did have an impact on utility cash flow. In addition, our general fund side, which is primarily funded through real estate taxes, earned income taxes, and real estate transfer taxes, there were actions taken by many municipalities during the initial period to defer the penalty period for paying real estate taxes. Instead of it being, was it August and September and thereafter,
right.
It was extended to the end of the year.
Right.
So many of those things we took actions on, and as a result, we realized areas that we didn't collect on. And on the general fund side, we estimate that we'll probably about between $450,000 and $500,000 down from what we would expect. Now, that doesn't mean at the end of the year when the penalty periods will resume on January 1st of 2021, that customers wouldn't pay up. But if you had that money to pay and you didn't know what your job status was going to be, you probably hold off on doing so until you had a better idea of what your status was. So we do have some concerns about where we're going with cash flow, but we did take some preemptive measures for the last several years of making sure that we had a satisfactory reserve fund in our general fund and in our utility funds. The Government Finance Association, the GFOA, recommends that you have between 25 and 50% of your expenditures in reserve.
Right.
And our finance director, Christine Moore, has stressed that with our authority operations as well as the borough. And as a result, we've been able to maintain those fund balances, which will put us in a good financial picture here as we get to the end of the year.
Good to know. Good to know. And just to clarify on that, so the utility moratorium and the eviction moratorium, which is not your stuff, but the stuff that goes along with that is supposed to be over on July 10th. Are you guys extending that for later, or is it still July 10th for utilities?
Well, as you may or may not know, most government decisions are made on a monthly cycle.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
so our July meetings will be July 6th and July 13th. So we'll be discussing these items at our July 6th work session, and then Borough Council will be providing direction, and they may take action July 13th. But we have had discussions about, even if we were to take action to resume, we would likely consider resuming those in perhaps 30 days from the action, so customers know it's coming and they can prepare for it.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Because I know that we've had a lot of phone calls, and I was like, hey, we'll be talking to the borough. We'll get good answers. We'll make sure that's really clear. So that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So every town, no matter what size it is, faces, those kinds of social issues, whether it's immigrants or race or homelessness or other kinds of poverty. So how do you see Ephrata sort of handling those kinds of issues? There have been some protests in town. There's been some, there's conversations about stuff. So how is Ephrata sort of handling those kinds of big social issues?
Well, for the most part, to make it clear, some of the social issues as it relates to providing social services is not a primary function of municipal government. All right, it's more of a county and a statewide initiative. So we don't really do social services from the standpoint of, homelessness and things like that. While we can be supportive of those things, that's not one of our primary responsibilities. But as you refer to some of the national, state, and local issues that we are seeing recently, our position is that that the citizens have the right to protest, and that our police department, who's in charge of public safety, has taken a position that they're responsible for assuring that the events are done to protect the public, so that they're that they have that role in protection. So what they have done is when we are aware that there is going to be an event, they've reached out to event sponsors, and they've talked logistics, and they basically have a general understanding, and they've been active or passive participants. They've walked with, they've walked among, but they're not there to prevent them from using their rights, but they're there to make sure that everybody remains safe. And since I would say in the last 4 weeks, I guess the first protest was on June 6th. We've had one each weekend since that, and they've essentially been non-eventful. The organizers have been able to succeed in conveying their messages. In fact, on the first protest on June 6th, there was a podium and there were remarks made, and quite frankly, they praised the Ephrata Police Department for how they handled themselves, and they actually got the largest round of applause of the day. So I think that I have to commend the leadership of the police department for the way that they handled it, and at the way they continue to handle these things.
Thank you. That was, yeah, we've, if people didn't, if people weren't there, they certainly saw coverage of that. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. Okay, so here's the last question that's on everyone's lips, and I could probably guarantee you have been asked this question 1,000 times, but we'll just ask it one more. Is the fair going to happen? I know you can't answer that right now.
Well, there's a few things that are going on. I mean, in
Thank
order for the fair to occur, the sponsor, which would be the Fair Association, must apply to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation and receive a permit to close the street.
Right.
Okay, so they submitted their permit application in a timely fashion, but the Commonwealth has not issued any permits and has indicated that they will likely not issue permits in the foreseeable future. Now, what does that mean? It means just what you said. It's undetermined whether or not the fair will occur. I've had communications with the Fair Association, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, but they have very, very challenging decisions to make. I believe that they are continuing to look at options, but as long as the CDC is recommending, social distancing, it would seem very difficult to hold an event, but that doesn't mean that there can't be certain components that they can consider. And I don't sit at the table with the fair board, but I can tell you this, that they are trying very, very hard to have a presence, whatever that may look like.
That there's someone who works at the library who looks so forward to every one of the baking contests, and she practices, and so the library staff gets the lovely benefit of getting to try all of her practice rounds. And we're sad if there's no baking contest, because what are we going to do? There's not going to be any snacks for the rest of us all summer
Yeah, there you go.
And she wins ribbons, so this stuff's delicious. And I know that you've been asked that question 10 million times. Thank you. That's a very clear answer. People will know exactly how that is. And look, you guys are fantastic about giving out information. So I know that the moment that it's official, one way or another, people will know.
Yeah, it's such a big event. There's a lot of push to try to hold an event, but to force an event where it really doesn't have a good chance to be as successful as expectations are is also something that you don't want to have a bad event.
Absolutely.
For the sake of having an event. And I know the organizers at the Fair Association, and I know members of their board, and they're taking this just as hard as the community is, if not worse. And they just are looking to do the right thing, but they also need to do the right thing that's safe.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I have to say, this has been truly great. All of the questions that people had that they were asking me, you have hit out of the park. So thank you very much. I will ask for any of those viewers out there, if you have questions that you want to ask the borough and you want to funnel them through me, feel free, put some comments down there, and we will certainly hook up with Bob again in the future to get your answers. So Bob, thank you very much. This was truly great.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. See you, everyone.